Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of these little guys. These are samples of the Refyne EP-1 pen. That is a very interesting new pen that I had never heard of up until they reached out to me, but actually that brings me to the next point, which is full disclosure. I want to thank very much Refyne for sending these guys along. They shot me an email, they agreed to my disclaimer on my website, and, I told them as always, I'm going to talk about the good, the great, the bad, the ugly. It might be a gem, might be junk. They still send them along. We do have to assume these are the very best quality controlled one of these guys ever, and I'm doing my absolute best not to let this affect the nature of my review, but nonetheless, that's where these guys came from, full disclosure. Next thing, let's do some size comparison real quick. I'll just use one of these guys for it. Here it is against a standard Bic Click stick pen, your pocket jotter. Here it is against the Machine Era Classic, which is the pen that is probably in my pocket most often, although this is not bolt action or anything, it is just an unscrew cap sort of thing. Here it is against a Pilot G2 pen, a pen I stole from a Hampton Inn. Sorry about that, Hampton Inn. Then finally, a couple of relevant comparisons of other small bolt action pens. Here it is against the Tactile Turn Mini, the Bolt Mini, which is a pen that is very, very slightly smaller, but is using a much more restricted refill. And here it is against the Urban Survival Gear Tie Scribe Bolt Mini, which is almost just a little tiny bit bigger, using the same refill. And then here it is against the Urban Survival Gear Full Size, and then this is the Bolt Action Short off of your Tactile Turn. So anyways, there you go. Those are some of the options that you've got there. Then finally, there are three different choices coming from this guy. There is this guy in a black PVD finish, which is their name, a gunmetal PVD, and these two are both steel, and this guy over here is a polished titanium. So anyways, there you go. Let's go ahead and jump into the good, the great, and the bad, the ugly of these very interesting little pens right here. So to start with, this is a very solid bolt action. This is a bolt action pen. That means in order to deploy the pen, you just need to press this down and let it slide to the other side of this little V-shaped track there. That pushes the refill out and keeps it there. So when you're writing, it just presses up into this area. Then when you want to turn the pen off, really? When you want to deactivate, when you want to retract, there's the term I'm looking for. Gee, English is hard. You just need to push this back over, and then it'll pop the rest of the way over. That's a beautiful thing, and bolt action pens are actually very nice. They're very easy, especially once you got some muscle memory. They're very easy to retract, but they don't rely on friction. Well, I mean, there's friction involved here, but they don't rely on parts that are going to wear out, etc. Actually, it's a very nice system. And this is a very solid little bolt action system with a very reasonable little groove here. I'm pretty impressed with that. One other thing that's worth noting is that on all of these guys, they were actually nice chamfers, both on the outside of the bolt here, as well as on the inside of the bolt action area, keeping this from being a sharp area, and that can definitely be a problem for some bolt action makers. So that's good. Next thing, this is the very top of this pen, actually, as well as this bolt here. These are Torx bits right here. And so what I can actually do is I can take a Torx T6 size driver, and I can just pop this right into here. And as I do so, I can take off this top bit. Now, why would you do that, you might say? Well, one of the things that this allows you to do is to put it back together without a cap, at which point you now have a capless pen. I'm sorry, not a cap. Put it together without the clip, so now you have a clipless pen. And by the way, it still doesn't roll because of the nature of the bolt action, so I can see this actually being a choice for somebody who really doesn't want a clip. But that makes it easy. The other thing that this makes a lot easier to do is if you have if you're carrying this guy, particularly in a pocket, you might find yourself in a position where you tweak the clip, where you accidentally bend the clip out this way. And so the thing that this allows you to do is to actually reinstall the clip backwards, like this, screw it in, and then rebend the clip. Or actually, as it might be, you might want to bend the clip to your preferred tension. Actually, this guy actually came with the clip a little bit too loose for me, so I actually did that and rebent it, and it worked great. But that's a nice thing. And you'll also see, by the way, that there is a little cube basically machined onto the top of this that fits into a hole in the clip here. So I can put this guy together, and the clip will not rotate around on the pen. And that's actually a great little detail. And what it just basically means, here, let's make sure everything's seated there, it means that your clip isn't going to be interfering. It's not going to drift out of position and then suddenly start working with your, start interfering with your bolt action. So I appreciate that very, very much. Next thing, this guy has very subtle branding. If we see at the very top of this guy, you see Refyne. Same thing on the top here, although this one isn't quite centered, which I'm not a big fan of. Where's the other one? Is that on? Yeah, this one's a little better. But still, it has very subtle branding there. And then you've got that little tiny detail, the same thing from their little Y logo, is right on here. So it's a very subtle sort of thing. People look at this, they're just going to think, oh, it's a pen, right? And that's a beautiful thing. Next thing, this is using a refill that is pretty uncontroversial. It is using a Parker-style refill. And that's something I appreciate very much. They're shipping with the Schmidt Easy Flow 9000 cartridge, which is fine. You know what? The Easy Flow, I should actually write with this in a pen, right? Easy Flow, it's good to go, right? I'm not a huge fan of it personally. I tend to prefer a gel ink sort of thing, but you know what? The Easy Flow works, right? And the thing is, you have the option to use any Parker-style refill in here. And that's absolutely great, because Parker refills are readily available in a variety of places, and you can get a bunch of different ink colors, etc., as well as a bunch of different, ink that flows, that kind of thing. So you can get a whole lot of variety in a Parker refill, and so that's a really nice choice. So it turns out I'm not a brilliant man. As I was getting ready to film this review, I went to their website to check the prices. It had $65, and then it listed the titanium and then the steel ones below there. So I assumed the price was $65, and a quick glance at Amazon confirmed these were $65. Then it turns out if you go to your website, as my buddy Ezra pointed out, one of my Patreon patrons, saw the review early, said, Nick, hey, you're an idiot. He said it nicer than that. Turns out that the two steel models are not $45, or not $65, but are actually only $40. That's way better. In fact, that puts a very different complexion on things. Not that my overall recommendation changed, it just became more positive, but that is definitely a nice thing. The fact that you can get into the steel models of this for $40, that feels really good. That is an absolutely solid price, and that takes it out of something like, originally this was in the bad, like, I don't know, you can get a lot of pen for $60, like, 40's way better. So anyways, you can go on ahead and disregard any future references to the price being, okay, because I'm not a brilliant man. So there you go. Price is absolutely good to go, and even on the titanium, $65 for titanium, that's not so bad after all. But anyways, there you go. Have yourself an absolutely wonderful rest of the review. And so, to me at least, all of that is the good, is that this is using a very good refill size, the Parker-compatible refill. It's got the Torx bits on here and here, allowing you to easily take the guy apart. It's got very subtle milling and branding on the clip right here, and it is a removable clip, which allows you to rebend this guy if you'd like, or take it out altogether. It's got nice chamfering, and it is a very solid, easy-to-use little bolt-action pen. On the great side, to me, this is a very compact pen, and I mean that in a couple of different ways. I mean, not only, particularly the titanium one is pretty lightweight. I'll go ahead and I'll weigh these guys up. His titanium is coming in here at 0.94 ounces. The steel PVD is coming in at 0.1 or at 1.28. Look, either way, it's a very, very lightweight little pen, which I appreciate very much. But there's also very little to it. I mean, in terms of the actual size here, it's not all that remarkably bigger than the refill for it. I mean, here is another Parker refill out of my jotter here. But you can see here, it's not so much bigger than the regular Parker. Oh, and now I got schmutz on the table. Nice. Anyways, that's the refill there is not that much smaller than the pen itself. And so they've done a very good job making it space efficient. But it is also one of the smallest pens that is able to carry a full Parker refill, right? I mean, the bolt-action pen world, there aren't all that many of them, but, some of the more compelling choices are the Tactile Mini here, and the Urban Survival Gear Mini. And you can see here that this guy is just mildly larger than the Tactile Mini, but this guy is using a more esoteric, the Mini G2 refill, that are actually hard to get. You can't buy the refill independently. This guy is using a conventional Parker-style refill, actually ships with the same refill as this guy. It's only a slight bit larger, but one of the big differences here is that this guy sticks out way above the pocket because the bolt on this guy is the clip, versus this guy, which buries very deep in the pocket. So I gotta say, in terms of carrying, this was a real pleasure. I like those other pens a lot, but this guy really, really disappears, and it even, for me at least, fit my key pocket rather nicely, which is something I appreciated. And so to me at least, the compactness of this guy is absolutely great, and that is the great for this pen. On the bad side, next thing, this is using a non-captive spring. Take this guy apart. You can see that there is a spring right there. That spring could go flying someplace if you were taking this guy apart for some reason. Not the end of the world, but it's just a thing. Next thing, this is using a steel clip even on the titanium. That's not something that's particularly ideal, and in fact it ends up having a very different finish than the titanium, but you know what, it's okay, I guess, not the end of the world. Then finally on the bad side, the machining on these guys is not super precise. If we look, for instance, at the tactile turn, and mind you, this is a more expensive pen, but where exactly is the gap between the barrel and this? You can't actually tell. Or at least it's very hard to. If I start to unscrew it, then suddenly it appears. But otherwise, you get a much, much finer machining level. And similarly, even on the Urban Survival gear, you just get much nicer machining overall. This feels like it was put together in much, much larger quantities. And so the machining isn't quite as pretty. You also get things like there's a little bit of a swell at the tip here. It feels like the tips don't entirely, like on this guy, it feels a little bit wonky. And the whole thing doesn't quite match up exactly. It just doesn't feel like as fancy, maybe that's not the term. It doesn't feel as precision made as some of the other guys. Compared to the small batch makers, this is definitely a mass production sort of piece, and you're paying that price. Whether this matters to you in any way, shape, or form, it might not. And if it doesn't, then by God, you're doing okay. But you are definitely not getting the same sort of high-quality machined object that you can often find in smaller makers elsewhere. So, to me at least, that's what's bad, is that the machining on this guy is not super precise necessarily. There is a steel clip on the titanium model. There's a non-captive spring, and $65 for a pen is getting toward prices where you can probably find something from a smaller artist and, support them as well. So, consider that at the very least. But look, final conclusion, and there's nothing ugly here, so final conclusion, I think this is a really good pen. I was actually very surprised by that. Not that I thought this was going to be bad necessarily, but, the world is full of bolt-action pens, and, very often they don't have anything that really distinguishes them. For me, at least, what this guy has that sets it apart is that size. I mean, it's a really good pen generally, right? It's got a good bolt action here. They got that right. They've got good chamfering here, a removable clip, nice details, a Torx cap, and a very compact form factor. I appreciate all of that very much. It's got a non-captive spring, a steel clip, and a tie body. The machining feels like it's to a lower standard than some of your smaller batch stuff, but the thing is, it's good. And these kinds of things, you're getting closer to $100 rather than 60. So I guess I should probably stop complaining, because honestly, I did enjoy carrying it. This is a good pen. It is a pen that I enjoyed using and that I carried actually a lot more than I felt like I needed to. Because, you know what? It's a gem. It is probably not my favorite bolt action in terms of utility and lightweightitude. That would probably be the Die Scribe Mini here. I like this just a little bit more, particularly in the hand, because there's no extra hardware here versus on this guy. There's sort of one position that works well with the clip here and the bolt here. I think I like the Urban Survival gear a little bit more as just sort of as a pure tool. And if I want something fancy, I still might go with tactile turn, because artistically speaking, this is a little bit nicer. But the thing is, look, it is a damn good pen. I'm actually very, very impressed with these guys. And if you're looking for a bolt action pocket that'll fit you, or bolt action pen that is, that'll fit in your pocket, fit in your budget, work pretty damn well, and not break the bank, then you know what? I feel like the little Refyne guy here could actually be a pretty refined choice. Particularly that lightweight titanium. Yeah, that's nice. So anyways, there you go. I hope this was interesting to you, that I refined my review sufficiently before filming it, and that you have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Sorry, guys, I got a bolt. Okay, bye now.